Commander Han Taijin sat perfectly still as the Galactic Council presented their terms. His hands rested on the polished table, his expression calm. Beside him, Ambassador Park Yoonji shifted in her seat, her jaw tightening with each new demand. Behind them, Captain Choi Minho stood at attention with the security detail. Watching everything with sharp eyes, the Grand Assembly Hall was enormous, built to impress and intimidate. 47 species had sent representatives. To this summit on perihelion Prime, humanity had waited 12 years for this moment, 12 years of proving themselves worthy. They had shared their medical technology, saved thousands of alien lives. They had fought pirates alongside Council forces, losing good people to protect trade routes. They had opened Earth and all human colonies to diplomatic missions, to cultural exchanges, to friendship. Now they were finally here. At the Integration Summit, the moment when humanity would officially join the galactic community, High Arbiter Velthanus stood at the center podium, his tall frame draped in ceremonial robes. He was Velmari, a species that had dominated council politics for 3 centuries. His voice carried easily through the chamber, confident and cold. "The terms are generous," Velthanus said. "Humanity should be grateful for this opportunity." Han Taijin had read the terms 3 times. Each reading made his blood run colder. Humanity would surrender 60% of their military fleet to Council control. They would accept Council governors on Earth and every human colony world. All human technology development would require Council approval before implementation. Human ships would pay transit fees in Council space, even on routes humans had helped clear of dangers. And humanity would pay tribute. Resources and credits flowing to the Council for the next 100 years. These terms are standard for new member species, Trade Magistrate Quintelex added from his seat. The Zephron was draped in expensive fabrics, his multiple arms gesturing lazily. You cannot expect full membership without demonstrating commitment. Park Yeonji could not stay silent any longer. She stood, her voice steady but passionate. "Ambassador Park Yoongi, representing Earth," she said formally. "We have demonstrated commitment for 12 years. We have fought beside you. We have shared our discoveries freely. We have opened our worlds. What you are asking is not commitment. You are asking for submission." Several council members laughed. The sound echoed through the vast chamber. War Prime Hokmerith of the Dravewan Imperium leaned forward. His scaled face twisted in amusement. "Humans are new, barely 2 centuries in space. You know nothing of how the galaxy works. These terms are not negotiable." "Then let us negotiate," Park Yoonji said. "Partnership should be mutual. We can discuss military integration that respects human sovereignty. We can establish fair trade agreements. There is nothing to discuss," Velthanus interrupted. "You will accept these terms, or humanity will remain outside the Council. Outside our protection, outside our trade networks, alone?" Park Yoonji tried again. She spoke of shared values, of cooperation, of the friendships humans had built with individual species over the past 12 years. She reminded them of the research station on Kelver 4, where human scientists had worked with Quellan researchers to cure a plague. She mentioned the battle at Draxus Point, where human ships had held the line so civilian transports could escape. The Council listened with barely concealed boredom. Some were not even looking at her. Quintalex was reviewing something on a datapad. A representative from the Thorian Collective was actually asleep. Han Taijin watched it all. He had been a military strategist before becoming a diplomat. He knew how to read a room, how to assess when a situation was salvageable and when it was not. He had suspected this outcome weeks ago, when preliminary terms had first been shared. He had hoped he was wrong. He was not wrong. "Your passion is noted, Ambassador Park," Velthanus said with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "But passion does not change reality. You are here because we allow it. You may join us under our terms, or you may leave. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. We have more important matters to attend to." More laughter from the Council. Choi Minho's hand moved slightly closer to his sidearm, though his face remained neutral. He had noticed something Han Taijin had also seen. Several Council species had brought unusual numbers of military escorts to what was supposed to be a diplomatic summit. Park Yunji stood at the podium for a long moment. These were proposals she had spent months preparing. Fair frameworks for cooperation, mutual defense agreements, cultural exchange programs. All of it was worthless now. She walked back to her seat slowly. Her hands were shaking. The summit continued for 3 more days. Each session brought new humiliations. When humans questioned specific terms, they were talked over. When they proposed alternatives, they were laughed at. When they asked for time to consult with Earth, they were told the terms had been final for months and humanity should have prepared better. On the 3rd day, Velthinus called for humanity's formal response. Han Tai-jin stood. The chamber fell silent. Even the species that had been ignoring the proceedings looked up. There was something in the human commander's posture that demanded attention. Commander Han Tai-jin, representing the United Human Colonies, he said quietly, "We have heard your terms. We have listened carefully to everything the Council has said over these 3 days." Velthinus smiled. "Then you accept?" "No," Han Tai-jin said simply. "We do not." The silence stretched. Then Velthinus laughed, and the council chamber erupted in amusement. "You refuse?" The High Arbiter said. "Then you understand what this means? No protection. No trade partnerships. You will be alone." "We understand perfectly," Han Tai-jin replied. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "We came here seeking partners. We see now that the Council is not interested in partnership. You are interested in subjects. That is your right, of course. It is also our right to decline." He gestured to the human delegation. As one, they stood. Park Hyunji gathered her useless proposals. Choi Min-ho and the security detail moved into formation. Human aides and junior diplomats followed. "Thank you for clarifying the situation," Han Tai-jin said. "We know where we stand now. We wish the Council well." He turned and walked toward the exit. The entire human delegation followed in perfect formation. Not hurried. Not angry. Just done. Behind them, the council chamber, filled with laughter and mocking comments. Humans would be back, they said. Where else could they go? They would crawl back within months, begging to accept the terms. Humans were weak, naive, foolish. Choi Min-ho heard it all. He saw Park Hyunji's shoulders shaking, though she kept walking with her head high. He noticed Han Tai-jin's expression never changed, calm and cold as ice. The doors of the Grand Assembly Hall closed behind them. The laughter was cut off in the corridor. Park Hyunji stopped walking. "Tai-jin, what did we just do?" Han Tai-jin looked at her. "We walked away from a table where we were never going to be allowed to sit. Now we build our own. They will make us pay for this," she whispered. Perhaps Han Tai-jin agreed. "But we will pay that price standing, not kneeling." The human delegation walked to their ships in silence. Behind them, the council continued their summit, already discussing how to divide the trade routes humans had been patrolling. They were confident. Humans would return, humbled and obedient. They had no idea what was coming. Dr. Yoon. Juwon was analyzing protein sequences when the message arrived. She sat in her laboratory on Research Station Kepler, surrounded by equipment that represented the best cooperation between humans and the Velmari species. For 6 years, she had worked here making breakthroughs that saved lives across a dozen worlds. The message was simple. All human citizens are requested to return to United Human Colonies space at their earliest convenience. Transport has been arranged. Juwon read it 3 times. Around her, the station continued its normal rhythm. Velmori scientists worked at their stations. Nothing seemed wrong. But something in the message's tone made her hands cold. She began packing her research immediately. Her supervisor, a Velmari named Talmaris, found her 2 hours later. "Giwon, what are you doing?" "I am returning home," she said simply. "Family reasons." "But the protein synthesis project, we are so close to completion." "I know. I have left detailed notes. Everything you need is in the database." Talmaris stared at her. "The database is locked. Your files require your authorization to access." "I will unlock them when I reach my ship," Guan lied. She had no intention of unlocking anything. The research was hers, developed as much by human methods as Velmori ones. Let them figure it out themselves. Across the station, the same scene repeated. Human engineers, doctors, scientists, all quietly packing, all giving polite excuses, all leaving within a week. Research Station Kepler had lost 40% of its research staff. Merchant Lee. Deho sat across from his business partner of 15 years. The Zephron trader Vilmaxis had made both of them wealthy. They had built trade routes through dangerous space, established markets on frontier worlds, created something real. I do not understand, Vilmaxis said, his multiple arms gesturing in confusion. Why end our partnership now? We have 3 new contracts ready to sign. Contracts expire in 5 months, Deho said. I will fulfill them completely, but I will not be renewing. But why? Have I offended you somehow? No, old friend. You have been nothing but honorable. Deho smiled sadly. But things are changing. I need to consolidate my operations closer to home. This is about the summit, Vilmaxis said quietly. About the council's terms, Deho said nothing. The council was foolish, Vilmaxis continued. Many of us know this. But surely this does not mean the end of all human cooperation. I will complete our existing contracts, Deho repeated. Beyond that, I cannot say. 3 months after the walkout, every human scientist had left council space. Every human diplomat had returned home. Every human trader had closed their offices and moved on. The process was orderly, professional, and absolute. The council barely noticed at first. Good riddance to arrogant humans, they said. Other species would fill the gaps. The galaxy had functioned for millennia before humans arrived. It would continue just fine without them. Then the problems started. The trade route through the Valdris corridor had been dangerous before humans began patrolling it. Pirates, spatial anomalies, debris fields. Human merchant ships were tough and well-armed. They had cleared the route and kept it safe, not because they were paid to, but because it made business sense. Now human ships no longer traveled that route. Pirates noticed immediately. Within a month, 3 merchant convoys were attacked. The council sent military ships to patrol, but the Dravewan Imperium demanded territory in exchange for protecting trade routes. Smaller species could not afford the fees. On the medical station orbiting Quellis Prime, doctors struggled with an outbreak of Krellian fever. For 4 years, they had been using a human-developed treatment protocol. It worked better than anything the Quellan had created themselves. But the protocol required regular updates to account for viral mutations. The last update had come 5 months ago. Now, the virus was adapting. People were dying. They sent messages to the Human Medical Research Center that had developed the treatment. The response was polite, but firm. Humanity is currently pursuing independent development. We are unable to provide support at this time. We wish you the best in your efforts. Admiral Kung Sora stood on the bridge of the battleship Soul's Pride, watching the fleet formation on the display. Every human military ship was pulling back to home territory, not fleeing, not hiding, consolidating. Final transport is away from Station Perihelion, her communications officer reported. All civilian personnel are now in human space, Good Sora said. Initiate protocol homebound. All ships to designated positions. Beside her, Captain Choi Minho reviewed defensive positions. He had been reassigned after the summit, now coordinating the massive logistical operation of bringing humanity home. The Council has noticed the fleet movements, he said. They are asking for explanations. Tell them we are conducting training exercises in our own territory, Sora replied. They have no authority to question our military movements in our own space. They are suggesting it looks aggressive. Sora laughed without humor. Let them think what they wish. We are not entering their space. We are not threatening anyone. We are simply coming home. On the council station, a junior analyst named Pip Telik was creating a report that no one would read. She was Velmari, small for her species and considered unimportant, but she paid attention to details that others missed. She had tracked every human departure. Every trade agreement allowed to expire. Every cooperative project ended. Every patrol route abandoned. The pattern was clear to her. Humanity was not coming back. She compiled her data carefully. Economic impact projections. Security vulnerabilities. Medical research dependencies. The numbers were alarming. Humanity had become deeply woven into council operations over 12 years. Now they were extracting themselves completely, and the gaps they left were enormous. She submitted her report to her supervisor. He glanced at it and dismissed her concerns. Humans are irrelevant. Other species will adapt. Piptilic said nothing, but she kept her own copies of everything. Something told her this information would be important soon. Trade Magistrate Quintalix was beginning to panic. He had built a fortune on human trade routes. Luxury goods from Earth, rare materials from human colony worlds. The humans were excellent producers, punctual, reliable, and their products were popular across council space. Now, every contract was expiring. Every human merchant was politely declining renewal. The goods still came for now, fulfilling existing obligations. But in 6 months, the flow would stop completely. He tried to contact human trade representatives. They responded to his messages, but the answer was always the same. We appreciate our past business relationship. At this time, we are restructuring our trade priorities. We wish you success. Other council merchants were having the same experience. They tried to form a coalition to pressure humanity. But pressure them how? Humans had not violated any agreements. They were fulfilling every contract perfectly. They were simply choosing not to sign new ones, for the first time in his long career. Quintalix felt helpless. 6 months after the walkout, the council called an emergency session. The agenda was supposed to be routine trade disputes, but the real topic was obvious to everyone. The human situation requires a response, High Arbiter Velthinus declared. They're attempting to manipulate us by withholding cooperation. What cooperation? Someone shouted from the back. They are not violating any laws. They are simply conducting their own business in their own space. It is clear they are trying to punish us for the summit terms. War Prime Hokumerth growled. This is weakness. They think they can threaten us. How are they threatening us? Another voice called, by leaving us alone? By staying in their own territory? The debate raged for hours. Some species wanted to demand humanity resume cooperation. Others pointed out that humans were sovereign and could not be forced. Some suggested sanctions. Others noted that sanctioning humans would only hurt council species who still had trade with them. Through it all, Velthinus grew more frustrated. Humanity was doing nothing wrong. That was the problem. They were not attacking, not threatening, not even complaining. They were just gone. And the council was discovering how much they had relied on human presence. Outside the chamber, Piptilic listened to the proceedings through her datapad. She thought about sending her analysis to someone who might care. But who? Everyone was too arrogant to admit the truth. Humanity had not walked away in anger. They had walked away in calculation. And the council was already paying the price. 1 year after the walkout, President Kim Heinwoo stood at the observation window of Unity Station, looking out at Earth below. Behind him, Commander Han Taijin waited silently. They were watching the news feeds from council space, and the reports were grim. Another border war, Hunwoo said quietly. The Dravoan are taking territory from the Thorian Collective. The council is doing nothing. The council cannot agree on anything anymore, Taijin replied. Without a common focus, old tensions are resurfacing. We were apparently the glue holding some of these relationships together. Hunwoo turned to face him. Should we intervene? No. Taijin's answer was immediate. The moment we involve ourselves, we validate their framework. We become part of their system again. That is exactly what they want. People are dying. People were dying when we were there too, Taijin said. We cannot save everyone. We can only build something better and show there is another way. At the border of human space, refugee ships were arriving every day. Small vessels, overcrowded and desperate. They were Quellan mostly, fleeing Dravoon expansion, but also Thorians, independent merchants. even some Zephyron, who would oppose their government's policies. Ambassador Park Yoonji coordinated the humanitarian response from Border Station 7. She had aged in the past year. The weight of watching the council collapse while humanity stood aside was crushing her. Another ship just jumped in, her aide reported. 43 Quillan refugees. Their colony was occupied yesterday. Process them through standard channels, Yoonji said. Medical screening, temporary housing, then we help them contact relatives or find new homes. Some are asking for weapons. They want to fight back. No weapons, Yoonji said firmly. We provide shelter, food, medical care. We do not arm factions or take sides in council conflicts. Quillan elder named Kisareth had been living in the refugee center for 3 months. She found Yoonji in the late hours, when the ambassador finally allowed herself to rest. You are killing yourselves with kindness that goes nowhere, Kisareth said. Her voice was gentle, but sad. You help us survive, but you will not help us fight. Why? Because fighting makes us part of the problem, Yoonji explained. The council is tearing itself apart. If we send weapons, we just add more violence. We feed more wars, so you watch us die. We keep you alive. We give you shelter. We give you hope. But we cannot fight your battles. Kisareth sat down heavily. The council said humans were weak. They were wrong, but not in the way they thought. Your weakness is that you care too much. You want to save everyone, even those who mocked you. Yoonji had no answer to that. The council sent envoys. They came one at a time, never together, each representing different factions. They asked humanity to resume trade, to share technology, to patrol routes, to mediate disputes. Each request was politely declined. Then High Arbiter Velthanus himself sent a message, broadcast across human space. His tone was different now, less arrogant but still condescending. Humanity has made its point, he said. You were offended by our terms. We understand. But this silence is childish. The galaxy needs cooperation. Resume your responsibilities. President Hyunwoo's response was broadcast on every channel, in every language across the entire galaxy. He sat at a simple desk. No grand backdrop or ceremonial robes. Just a man speaking plainly. High Arbiter Velthanus speaks of responsibilities, Hyunwoo said. Let me be clear about what happened 1 year ago. We came to your summit seeking partnership. We offered cooperation between equals. You offered submission. You demanded we surrender our sovereignty, our military, our right to govern ourselves. You wanted tribute. You wanted control. He paused, letting the words settle. When we declined, you laughed. You mocked us. You told us we would be back, desperate and begging. You were so certain of our weaknesses. Another pause. You called this silence childish. I call it dignity. We offered you partnership. You demanded submission. We offered cooperation. You demanded tribute. We offered friendship. You offered contempt. Now we offer you nothing but the same courtesy you showed us. Indifference. The message was calm, measured, and absolutely final. We have responsibilities, Hyunwoo continued. To our own people, to those who seek our help at our borders, to the future we are building. We have no responsibility to fix problems created by your arrogance. You may rule your space as you see fit. We will build ours differently. Good luck, the broadcast ended. Warprime Hokmarith watched the message 3 times, his rage building with each viewing. This was intolerable. Humans had no right to speak to the council this way. They needed to be reminded of their place in the galaxy. He began organizing a military coalition. The humans were bluffing. He was certain. They had pulled back, consolidated their forces. But surely they could not stand against the combined might of multiple council species. A show of force would remind them of reality. 12 species contributed ships to the coalition. Not the full council, but enough. The Dragoon provided the core fleet. The Zephyron sent merchant protection vessels. Various smaller species added what they could, either believing in the cause or fearing what would happen if they refused. The fleet assembled in council space, impressive and powerful. 847 warships, representing the might of multiple civilizations. Surely humans would see reason when faced with such force. Piptilic watched the fleet gathering and felt sick with fear. She had spent the past year collecting information, building a complete picture of what was really happening. She knew what the Council refused to see. Humanity had not spent the past year hiding. They had been preparing. She sent a message to human space through back channels and coded transmissions. Everything she knew, all her analysis, all her warnings. She did not know if anyone would receive it or care, but she had to try. In human space, Commander Han Taijin received Piptilic's intelligence. He read through it carefully, then shared it with Admiral Kong Sora. The Velmari analyst, Sora said. The one you thought might be useful. She has been watching everything, Taijin confirmed. Her analysis is excellent. She knows exactly what they are planning. Does it change our preparations? No, we expected this. Taijin pulled up star charts showing the likely approach routes. Hokmarith is predictable. He will come to our border, make demands, expect us to fold. And when we do not, then we show them what we have been building. Sora looked at the charts for a long moment. Are we ready? We have been ready for months, Taijin said. Everything is in place. Every system. Every ship. Every soldier knows their role. People will die. Some, perhaps. But far fewer than if we allow this coalition to think they can push us around. We need to make this lesson very clear, very quickly, so it never needs to be repeated. The coalition fleet prepared to move. Hokmarith broadcast his intentions openly, wanting humans to know they were coming. He expected fear. He expected desperate negotiations. He expected humans to realize they had made a terrible mistake. On human worlds, evacuation drills were conducted smoothly. Citizens moved to shelters calmly. No panic, no chaos. The military moved to positions with quiet efficiency. Everything had been planned, prepared, practiced. Choi Minho stood on the bridge of the defense platform Guardian, overlooking the Haven's Gate system. This was humanity's border, the place where the Council fleet would arrive. He checked his systems one final time. All platforms green, his tactical officer reported. Ghost fleet is positioned. Weapons platforms are on standby, Goodminho said. He thought about the Council chamber 1 year ago, the laughter and mockery. He thought about the refugees arriving daily, broken and afraid. He thought about Piptilic, risking everything to warn them. They're about to learn a very painful lesson, he said quietly. I almost feel sorry for them. Almost. His officer asked. Almost. Minho confirmed. The coalition fleet jumped into Haven's Gate, expecting to find scattered defenders and frightened civilians. They were about to discover what humanity had really been doing for the past year, and the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. The coalition fleet emerged from faster than light, travel in perfect formation. 847 warships materialized at the edge of the Haven's Gate system. Weapons ready and shields raised. Warprime Hokmarith stood on the bridge of his flagship, massive Draevon battleship Conqueror's Will, and smiled with satisfaction. The system appeared empty. No defense platforms visible. No patrol ships. No military presence at all. Just empty space and a few distant planets. Scan the system, Hokmarith ordered. Find their forces. His sensor officer worked the controls, frowning at the readings. I am detecting minimal activity. Some civilian traffic near the third planet. No military signatures. They are hiding, Hokmarith announced to his bridge crew. Cowards. We will find them and drag them to negotiations. Beside him, Shipmaster Tervelin of the Zephyron contingent felt uneasy. He had fought beside humans before, years ago, against pirates. They had not seemed like cowards then. But the sensors were clear. The system was essentially unsuspended. The fleet advanced deeper into the system, maintaining formation. Still nothing. No response to their hails, no defensive maneuvers. Just silence. Maybe they already ran, one of Hokmarith's officers suggested. Maybe they evacuated when they learned we were coming. Then we claim the system, Hokumerith said. Either way, we win. They were 3 hours into the system when the first message came through. It arrived on all channels, calm and clear. Coalition Fleet. This is Captain Choi Minho of the United Human Colonies Defense Force. You have entered our space without authorization. You have 1 hour to withdraw. This is your only warning. Hokumerith laughed. The sound echoed across the bridge. 1 hour? Or what? Where's your fleet, human? Where are your defenses? No response came. The channel closed. They are bluffing, Hokumerith declared. Continue advance. We will find their hiding places, and the space around the fleet suddenly came alive. What had appeared to be asteroids lit up with engine signatures. Defense platforms that had been running completely cold suddenly powered up, revealing themselves in a sphere around the Coalition fleet. Ships that looked like debris detached from concealment positions. Weapons systems activating turbulence sensors went insane with contacts. 300 platforms? 200 ships. They were here the entire time. On the defense platform Guardian, Choi Minho watched his tactical display with cold satisfaction. Everything had worked perfectly. The Ghost fleet had been positioned weeks ago. Engines cold, emissions dampened to nothing. The defense platforms had been built to look like natural objects until the moment they were needed. 1 hour is up, he said calmly. All units, engage. Disable. Do not destroy. Show them what restraint actually looks like. The battle began. Coalition ships opened fire first, panicked and disorganized. Their weapons hit human shields that rippled with energy but did not break. The shield technology was new, developed during humanity's year of isolation. It absorbed impact in ways Council scientists had never imagined. Human ships responded with precision. Weapons fire that did not explode, but instead released electromagnetic pulses. Shield generators overloaded and shut down across the Coalition fleet. Engines seized up as their control systems were locked down by intrusion software. Communication arrays went dark as human electronic warfare specialists worked their craft. A Dravuan cruiser tried to ram a human frigate, engines at full burn. The human ship simply moved, its maneuvering thrusters allowing impossibly tight turns. As the cruiser passed, the human vessel fired a spread of specialized missiles. They attached to the Dravuan ship's hull and activated, releasing a field that made the cruiser's weapon systems completely inert. What is this? The Dravuan captain screamed. What are they doing to us? Admiral Kong Sora watched the battle from her command center deep in the Haven's Gate system. Very ship, every weapon, every system was performing exactly as designed. This was not war. This was surgery. Coalition flagship is attempting to withdraw, her tactical officer reported. Let them, Sora ordered. Let some ships escape. They need to carry the message back. Hokumerith watched his fleet being systematically dismantled. Ship after ship went dark, not destroyed, but captured. His weapons officer tried everything, but human ships dodged with impossible agility. His shield generators were overwhelmed by weapons that seemed to specifically target their weaknesses. He ordered, all ships withdraw, but most of his fleet could not move. Their engines were locked, their systems compromised. Human ships surrounded them, weapons armed, but not firing. Just waiting. Tervalin's merchant cruiser was one of the lucky ones. His systems had been hardened against electronic warfare due to years of fighting pirates. When his engines still responded, he ordered immediate withdrawal. What about the others? His weapons officer asked. They are already captured, Tervalin said. We cannot help them. We must escape and warn the Council. The ship and 23 others managed to jump out. 823 ships remained behind. Sitting helpless in space while human vessels circled around, then something else happened that shocked. Every coalition officer, still able to monitor events, human ships began rescue. Operations. Vessels that had lost life support received. Emergency power transfers. Coalition crew members, trapped in damaged sections, were extracted by human rescue teams. Medical ships moved through the captured fleet. Offering aid to the wounded, Captain Choi Min-ho's voice came over all channels again. Coalition forces, you are now prisoners of the United Human Colonies. Your crews will be treated according to established humanitarian standards. Medical care will be provided. Your ships will be secured but not destroyed. No one else needs to die today. On one captured Draveon vessel, the crew watched in confusion as human soldiers boarded. They had expected violence, maybe execution. Instead, the humans moved efficiently through the ship, securing weapons, but treating crew members with professional courtesy. A human medic stopped to treat a wounded Draveon officer. Working quickly to stop bleeding from a console explosion, the Draveon stared at him in shock. Why are you helping me? We came to attack you. The medic smiled grimly. Because you are not our enemy anymore. You are just someone who got hurt. We do not leave injured people to suffer if we can help. But the military aspect of the battle was only half of what humanity unleashed that day. From Commander, no. Han Taijin's office in human space. A massive data transmission went out across the entire galaxy. Every news network, every communication hub, every planet with receivers capable of detecting the signal, it was intelligence. Years of careful observation. Documents Pip Tillich had provided. Human analysis of council corruption and abuse. The truth about how the council really operated. Evidence of the backroom deal where Velthanus had promised Hokumerith territory if humans were forced to join the council. Records of Quintilex accepting bribes to award trade contracts to favored species. Documentation of council military forces standing aside while the Draveon conquered smaller species. Messages showing how the Quellan had been ignored for decades when they asked for protection. Trade agreements where council species paid massive tribute while claiming to be free partners. Military records of council ships attacking. Refugees who tried to flee oppressive worlds. The truth about what the Galactic Council really was. Not a partnership, but a protection racket run by the powerful against the weak. Pip Tillich watched the broadcast from her small apartment on the council station. She recognized her own analysis, combined with human intelligence gathering. Tears ran down her face. The truth was finally out there for everyone to see. Her door chimed. She opened it to find security officers. Analyst Pip Tillich, you are under arrest for treason, she went with them calmly. She had known this would happen, but it was worth it. The galaxy would know the truth now. On worlds across council space, populations watched the broadcasts in shock. Some refused to believe it. Others had suspected for years and finally had proof. Governments scrambled to deny, to spin, to control the narrative. But the evidence was overwhelming, detailed, carefully documented. Impossible to completely dismiss, the coalition ships that escaped limped back to council space with tales of impossible human technology and devastating defeat. They spoke of weapons that disabled but did not destroy, of enemies who captured but did not kill, of a military force so advanced it made council ships look like primitive vessels. War-Prime Hokumerith tried to claim victory, tried to rally support for another attack. But his officers told the truth. They had been humiliated, captured, treated like children who needed to be taught a lesson, and worse. The galaxy now knew what the council had become. High Arbiter Velthanus called an emergency session, but fewer than half the council members attended. The rest were dealing with protests on their homeworlds, populations demanding answers about the corruption exposed in human broadcasts in the Haven's Gate system. Human forces processed over 25,000 prisoners. They provided medical care, food, and comfortable detention. The coalition soldiers, expecting torture or abuse, instead found themselves treated better than their own militaries had ever treated them. Captain Choi Min-ho walked through the detention facility, observing operations. A young human officer approached him. "Sir, some of the prisoners are asking to speak with you. They want to know what happens next." "Tell them they will be held until diplomatic arrangements can be made for their return," Min-ho said. "Tell them they are safe. And tell them that humanity fights when we must, but we take no pleasure in causing unnecessary suffering." The officer nodded and moved away. Minho stood for a moment, looking out at the rows of former enemies now. Under his protection, the galaxy had learned what happened when you pushed humanity. Now, it was time to show them what came next. 6 months after the battle at Haven's Gate, the galaxy looked completely different. The old Galactic Council still existed in name, but its authority had crumbled. High Arbiter Velthana sat in chambers that were mostly empty now, his ceremonial robes somehow looking shabby in the harsh light. War Prime. Hokamarith had been removed from power by his own government. The Dravuan Imperium was facing internal rebellion after the truth about their territorial ambitions became public. He awaited trial for war crimes. His military career ended in humiliation. Trade Magistrate Quintalix had fled to a remote colony world after evidence of his corruption sparked riots on his home planet. Arrest warrants were issued by a dozen governments. But the collapse of the old council was only part of the story. Something new was being built. President Kim Hoon-woo stood at the podium in the assembly hall on Unity Station, looking out at representatives from 67 species. The hall had been built specifically for this purpose, designed with input from dozens of cultures. Every species had a voice. Every representative sat at the same level. No hierarchy of importance. "We gather today to sign the Treaty of Free Species," Hyun-woo said. His voice carried clearly, translated into every language present. "This is not a council where some rule and others obey. This is not an alliance where the strong exploit the weak. This is a partnership of equals." Ambassador Park Yoon-ji sat in the human delegation section, watching the proceedings with tears in her eyes. This was what she had dreamed of at the original summit. Not human domination, but genuine cooperation. It had taken a year of isolation, a devastating battle, and the exposure of terrible truths to reach this moment. But they were here. Elder Representative Kisareth of the Quellan Harmony stood to speak. Her people had suffered under council neglect for decades. Now they had a real voice. "The council told my people we were too small to matter," she said. "Too weak to have opinions. We were expected to be grateful for whatever scraps we received. The humans taught us a different lesson. They taught us that strength is not about size or weapons. Strength is about knowing your worth and refusing to accept less." She paused, looking at the human delegation. "When we came to your borders as refugees, you could have turned us away. You could have used our desperation to gain servants or soldiers. Instead, you gave us shelter, medical care, and help finding new homes. You asked nothing in return, except that we remember kindness exists." Commander Han Taijian watched from the observation area above the main floor. He had declined a seat at the table, preferring to let others take the lead. This was not about human control. This was about creating something that could outlast any single species. Beside him, Captain Choi Minho stood at ease. "It is strange, is it not? A year ago we were being mocked. Now they are calling us saviors." "We are not saviors," Taijin said quietly. "We are just people who refuse to kneel." The fact that the galaxy sees that as remarkable says more about them than us. The Treaty of Free Species laid out principles that seemed almost radical compared to council practices. No tribute demanded from members. No mandatory military integration. No governors imposed on sovereign worlds. Just mutual defense agreements, fair trade frameworks, cooperation between genuinely equal partners. The treaty also included strict prohibitions. No wars of conquest. No slavery or forced servitude. No exploitation of less advanced species. Any member found violating these principles would face collective sanctions from all other members. "We must be honest about enforcement," Hyun-woo continued from the podium. "Words on documents mean nothing without action. Therefore, we propose a joint defense force. Staffed by volunteers from all member species, trained to common standards, and commanded by rotating leadership. No single species controls it. No single species can use it for personal gain." A representative from the Thorian Collective stood. "And if a member violates the treaty, who decides their punishment?" "We all do," Hyun-woo said simply. By vote, no single species has veto power. Majority decision, with provisions to protect minority concerns. It will be messy. It will be complicated. But it will be fair. In a secure facility on Earth, Pip Telic watched the proceedings through a live feed. She had been rescued by human special forces 3 months earlier, extracted from a council prison where she had been held for treason. Now she lived quietly, writing analysis reports for the new alliance and trying to process everything that had happened. Dr. Yunjuan visited her often. They had become friends, the human scientist and the Velmari analyst. 2 people who had believed in something better and paid prices for their beliefs. "Your people are signing the treaty," Juan said, bringing Pip Telic tea. "The Velmari Council voted to join as full members. After everything they did, we are allowing them?" Pip Telic asked. "The treaty is not about punishment," Guan explained. "It is about moving forward. Species that want to change are welcome. Those who do not will be left behind." Pip Telic sipped her tea. "I still cannot believe this worked. That humans walked away, and somehow that changed everything." "We did not change anything," Juan said. "We just stopped pretending the old system was acceptable. The galaxy changed itself once it saw another option was possible." At the signing ceremony, species after species came forward to sign the treaty. Some were former council members, reformed and ready to operate differently. Some were small civilizations that had never had power before. Some were independents who had avoided galactic politics entirely. Admiral Kong Sora had returned to military duties, but her role was different now. She commanded the Joint Defense Force training program, teaching officers from dozens of species to work together. It was challenging work. Breaking down old prejudices and building new trust, Captain Choi Min-ho had been assigned to her staff. He worked directly with trainees, sharing human combat doctrine and learning from other species in return. He found it surprisingly rewarding. A young Quellan officer approached him after a training session. "Captain, may I ask a question?" "Of course." "At Haven's Gate, you could have destroyed the entire fleet. Your weapons were superior. Why did you not?" Minho considered his answer carefully. "Because destroying them would have solved nothing. Dead enemies cannot learn, cannot change, cannot go home and tell their people there is a better way. We needed to win, yes, but we also needed to show what winning with honor looks like." The officer thought about this. "My people were conquered twice by the Dravuan. Both times they destroyed our cities and enslaved survivors. I thought that was what strong species did." "Then your people were taught by the wrong teachers," Minho said. "True strength is protecting those who need protection, not preying on the weak." Former Trade Magistrate Quintalix was captured attempting to flee to unaligned space. He was returned to his homeworld for trial. The charges were extensive: bribery, corruption, abuse of power, war profiteering. His testimony revealed even more council corruption, leading to additional prosecutions. Merchant Lee Deho, who had closed his business partnerships with council species, found new opportunities in the treaty alliance. Fair trade without exploitation. Partnerships based on mutual benefit. He prospered more than he ever had under the old system. The treaty signing completed as the sun set outside Unity Station. Representatives from 67 species had signed. More were expected to join within weeks. The old council still technically existed, but it was irrelevant now. Most of its former members had already switched to the new alliance. President Hyunwoo gave the closing address. "1 year ago, humanity walked away from a table where we were not welcome. We were told we would regret it. We were told we would come crawling back. We were told we needed the council more than they needed us." He smiled. "They were wrong about everything. Today we sit at a table we built together, a table where everyone is welcome, where everyone has a voice, where no one kneels. This is what we wanted from the beginning. Not dominance, not submission, just the chance to stand beside you as equals." He looked around at all the representatives. "This will not be easy. We will disagree. We will argue. We will make mistakes. But we will do it together as partners, respecting each other even when we disagree. That is what makes this different from what came before." The assembly erupted in applause. Not polite diplomatic applause, but genuine emotion. Species that had been enemies last year were sitting beside each other now, working toward common goals. Ambassador Park Yoonji found Commander Han, Taejon, in the observation area as the assembly dispersed. "We did it," she said. "Everything we hoped for." "You did it," Taejin corrected. "I just removed the obstacles." "You built the dream. You built it together," she insisted. "All of us. Humans and aliens alike. Everyone who refused to accept that the old way was the only way." That night, human colony ships departed for new worlds, escorted by Joint Defense Force ships crewed by multiple species. Trade vessels from dozens of civilizations moved freely through space that had been dangerous just months before. Research stations buzzed with collaborative projects that shared knowledge instead of hoarding it in the ruins of the old council chambers. High Arbiter Velthanus sat alone. He had not been arrested. He had not been punished. He had simply been made irrelevant. That somehow felt worse. A message arrived on his terminal. He opened it, expecting another resignation from his vanishing staff. Instead, it was from President Hyunwoo. "High Arbiter Velthanus, the Treaty of Free Species remains open to all species seeking membership. This includes the Velmori. The past cannot be changed, but the future remains unwritten. If your people wish to join us, you will be welcome. The choice is yours." Velthanus stared at the message for a long time. Humanity could have destroyed the council, could have humiliated his species, could have taken revenge for every insult and mockery. Instead, they offered welcome. He finally understood what power really looked like. On Unity Station, Kassereth found Captain Choi Minho in one of the observation lounges, looking out at the stars. "Captain, I wanted to thank you personally," she said. "My people are free now, truly free. We have voices that matter. That is because of humanity." "It is because of you," Minho corrected. "We just showed you another option was possible. You chose to take it. Still, we owe you a debt." "Then pay it forward," Minho said. "Help the next species that needs it. Build something good. That is the only debt we care about." Kassereth smiled. "You humans are strange. You fought a battle without killing enemies. You won a war without conquering territory. You changed a galaxy without demanding power. I think we are all still trying to understand you. We are not complicated," Minho said. "We just want to build something better than what we found. We want friends, not subjects. We want cooperation, not domination. Everything else follows from that." Across the galaxy, the change rippled outward. Species that had been watching from the sidelines saw what was possible and wanted to be part of it. Pirates found trade routes suddenly protected by coordinated defense forces. Refugees found shelter instead of exploitation. Small civilizations discovered they could negotiate fair deals instead of accepting whatever scraps they were offered. It was not perfect. There were still problems, still conflicts, still species that rejected the new order. But for the first time in galactic history, there was a real alternative to rule by the strong over the weak, and it had started with one simple act. Walking away from a table where humanity was not welcome, and building a better one where everyone was, President Kim Hoon-hwa stood in his office late that night, looking at Earth through the window. Commander Han Taijin joined him, two old friends who had gambled everything on a principle. "Do you think it will last?" Hyunwoo asked. "Nothing lasts forever," Taijin replied. "But we gave it the best foundation we could. Free choice. Equal voices. Mutual respect. If it falls, it will not be because we built it wrong." The council said we would regret walking away. "We did not walk away," Taijin said. "We walked towards something better. There's a difference." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching humanity's homeworld turn slowly in the dark. Somewhere out there, humans worked beside Quellan and Zephron and Velmari and dozens of other species, building a future together, not because they had to, because they chose to, and that made all the difference.